female colleagues who met at a cozy wood-paneled bar across the street. They were regulars, and the bartenders usually had their drinks poured the minute they took off their coats. I always left after one glass of wine. My kids were young, and I wanted to get home to make dinner. My coworkers stayed, usually for another couple of rounds, then drove home on the rainy roads. It wasn't as if I was sipping herbal tea at night myself. I usually had a small juice glass of wine while I was cooking, and another small one during dinner. But evenings at the bar used to make me a little worried. Those women sort of tied one on. What if someone got into an accident and I hadn't said anything? I realized that it wasn't just the pressure of meeting deadlines. Women drank if they worked, women drank if they didn't work. They even drank at the parent meetings for the laid-back environmental middle school. There was no need for flasks there. Half the time, gatherings were in wine bars. Women drank in my sister's elegant suburb, before dinner, during dinner, instead of dinner. They drank just as much in my hipster neighborhood on the other side of the river, too. One Sunday night, as I was doing the dishes, I saw a woman with an ancient yellow lab pause on the parking strip outside next to the recycling bin, out for the next morning's pickup. She glanced around furtively, then shifted her backpack around to her chest. She slid first one giant empty green bottle into the plastic box, and then another. She did this as noiselessly as one might move a sleeping baby from the car seat to the crib, so as not to disturb. At first I thought maybe she had just forgotten to take out her own bin, but those big Merlot bottles were there every Monday morning for the next 6 years. It became clear that this wasn't just in New York and Portland. My survey was decidedly unscientific, but wide-ranging. Women drank in Seattle, they drank in Chicago, they drank in San Francisco. They just drank. As I began to think about this book, I realized that drink was more of a subtext in my own life than I had understood. As a child, it was a thrill for me to stride into rural Oregon bars and pool halls with my granddad, a handsome French-Canadian with deep-set blue eyes, the nose of a hawk, and smooth, broad cheekbones that looked like they'd been chiseled from marble. Poppy managed a jukebox and pinball machine operation his brother-in-law owned. And when we would walk into a place, nobody cared much about minors not being allowed. People sat up and took notice. The bars made me feel like I was visiting Jeannie in her bottle. The wall incandescent with green gin, topaz whiskey, and gleaming vodka looked to me like a library of giant jewels. The cocktail waitresses always gave me Shirley Temples loaded with maraschino cherries, plastic monkeys dangling from the side of the tall glass. Poppy had come to the United States as a teenager, in the midst of Prohibition, and his knowledge of the Canadian border's back roads came in handy during that long dry spell. Only after he died did I understand what he had meant when he joked that he had been in the thirst business. My parents weren't teetotalers, but they were hardly big tipplers either. Drinks were for special occasions. My dad liked Black Russians, but only in restaurants, and once, on vacation, my mom ordered a Blue Hawaii. When I was in high school in the early 1980s, somebody would pass around a bottle of MD 2020, or draw a crowd with a case of contraband Rainier someone had begged an older brother to buy. The beer was invariably warm and invariably bad, and I could never understand what the fuss was about. In college, I got really drunk a single time, on a bottle of Cracklin' Rose. It was the fall of 1982, and as freshmen we envisioned the need for some sort of terrific mass relief after our first set of midterms. We organized an evening with a purpose, something we called the Get Drunk and Fall Down Party. I drank most of my bottle and spent many hours that night trying to calm my spinning bed. I was 18 and stupid, but I learned a fast lesson. For 2 years after, I worked hard and rarely drank. But then I went to study in France. The girls who lived across the hall in my squat concrete dorm always kept their doors open, Gallic insouciance on constant display. They sat cross-legged on the floor and smoked cigarettes, tapping away at their typewriters and occasionally pouring Bordeaux from the collection of half-drunk bottles on their desks.